Hey guys, I'm gonna give it a second. We are in studio right now because we're getting ready to tape an episode that's gonna be released in a couple days. It'll be released sooner for patrons on Patreon. If you aren't already, please go to patreon.com/The Nomiki Show, which is what you are watching right now. While we get people in here, what a week. I felt like our show, which is a weekly show, was gonna be enough, but turns out I have to do more of these lives because there's just too much news breaking, and specifically around things I happen to have experience in, so I feel like I have to say something and people will ask me questions, and I think this is the best way to do so. So for those of you just joining us, we are in studio right now getting ready to do our show, and you're asking me questions like add the super chat button. We have a lot of things planned, little by little, baby steps, but what I want to say at the top is thank you for subscribing, because we are only 1 month old as of yesterday, and we have 25,000 subscriptions. I mean, I did not expect that. I didn't expect people to sign up so quickly. So just thank you so much for being part of this community. I think that, you know, this is an important service I can provide for the community, which is giving you guys the tools to go out there and fight, to organize as a movement, to be on message, and to, you know, respond to the attacks. We want to pull back the curtain on the establishment, the status quo, what they're doing, and I feel like this is one of the few places that's doing it right now. Left media is so important, so please, 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 if you're not already, click subscription and become a patron at patreon.com. And one more plug before I go into it. If you're going to be in LA, which you should be, for Super Tuesday, knocking on doors, there's gonna be a huge rally just before our event. But on Super Tuesday, in true nature of the left movement, we are the leftist hosts. A lot of us are coming together in solidarity, and we are challenging cable news. We are gonna do an unbiased show, actually report on what's happening, and it's going to be live in front of an audience in downtown LA. And you can get your tickets. They're going to be in the information section at bit.ly/LA Super Tues. And yeah, the tickets are going. So you want to get those before they sell out this weekend. But again, it's going to be on Super Tuesday in downtown LA. That is this coming Tuesday. Okay, guys, last night during a town hall, Elizabeth Warren was asked a question by this guy I love. He asked her a question, I'm sure you saw the clip, in which she was asked about superdelegates. And her response to me was concerning, because not only was she wrong, but she also didn't understand the process. And I'm gonna get to this, because I think if you are running for president, you should know the rules of the primary process. And yes, some of those rules have changed in the last couple of years. They often actually do change every election cycle. There usually is a commission that fixes, you know, the problems of the past. There was a commission after Hillary and Obama. There was a commission all the way in the early 80s, the Hunt Commission, that established superdelegates. So if you're gonna run for president, you might wanna know the rules of the primary before you're asked a question about it. Right now, Bernie Sanders has the surest path to the nomination. It doesn't mean he's gonna win every single state. He'll probably come very close, but compared to everybody else, he has a multiracial, multi-generational movement that is turning out across the country, a working class movement that nobody else has, and it's the only thing that's gonna fight Donald Trump. Now, right now, Warren has, I think, 8 delegates. And moving forward, she is in 3rd place, 4th place, might not even win her own state of Massachusetts. So she doesn't really have a path to getting to 1,991 delegates to win before the convention. So her path right now, as well as Pete's path and Amy's path and everybody else in the race, including Biden, their only way forward is to not let Bernie Sanders get the nomination before the convention. They're trying to block him from getting to 1,991 earned delegates, the delegates he wins through democracy. They don't want him to get to that number. So they're throwing everything out. Last week, they were saying he was a Putin puppet. The week before, it was Bernie Bros. Every week, there's a new attack. And watch Neera Tanden, because she usually sends out the bat signal that many of the candidates go out there and repeat, including Michael Bloomberg. So this week, the bat signal was that Bernie's trying to change the rules from where he was last time around. That's false. Let me explain. In 2016, Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, up until California, were pretty close with the earned delegates, the delegates they won through primaries and caucuses. He had won 22 states, a couple of territories and caucuses on top of that, and they were neck and neck. But if you recall, right before the California primary in June, the AP called it for Hillary Clinton because they were factoring in superdelegates. Now, superdelegates, based on those rules back then, were not even really supposed to declare who they were supporting, but they did, and they're doing it this time too. And they did it early on in July of 2015, and that is what blocked Biden from even getting into the race. He knew he could not get those superdelegates. I'm going to turn the chat off, guys. I'm sorry. For me, at least. How do I do that? I don't want to see it. Up on the top. Thanks, Dorsey. Do you guys want to meet Dorsey? Come here. No, okay. He wants to hide. Up on the top. It's just I keep reading your chats and I'm losing my train of thought. All right, whatever. I'll just focus because it's so close to the camera, so I'm seeing them. Anyways, so Bernie made superdelegates an issue because the actual delegates were so close in count, and they weren't supposed to make their decision until they were actually at the convention, on the convention floor, on the second ballot. So that was the scenario then. Then we had the Unity Reform Commission, which came out of the convention, in which, let me remind everybody, the majority of people on the Unity Reform Commission were Hillary Clinton supporters. They were appointed by Hillary Clinton, 3 were appointed by Tom Perez, and the rest, 8 of us, were on the Bernie side. And there were people on her side who didn't want superdelegates. We didn't want superdelegates, but because we were in the minority, we lost, and we reduced superdelegates entirely, beyond our mandate, entirely on the first ballot, and they were reduced for the second delegate. So it's not 65% of what it was in 2016. So, we didn't win. And then what happened was those recommendations were sent to the Rules Committee. And the Rules Committee at the DNC, this was like 2 years later, after the beginning of the Unity Reform Commission, the Rules Committee was all appointed by Tom Perez appointees, okay? So they wrote the rules, then they put it before the DNC body at large, and then they voted on it. Really processy, super confusing if you're not used to this stuff, but maybe if you're running for president, you should probably know the details. So I don't know if Warren understands this, but I do know that her advisors do, because they were in the coalition to reform the superdelegate process. Adam Green himself was setting up phone calls with the press, with us, saying that we need to end superdelegates because, let's be clear, none of these people would be able to run in this race right now if there had been the same superdelegate system. Pete Buttigieg wouldn't have a shot. Amy Klobuchar wouldn't have a shot. If all the superdelegates had lined up the way that they did in 2016, Elizabeth Warren would not be able to go to her donors and say she has a shot. She wouldn't make it on the debate stage. None of these candidates, except for Bernie Sanders and maybe Biden and Bloomberg, would have been able to get on the debate stage, okay? So, number one, the superdelegates were something that Bernie was always against. It is not the same scenario this time. Elizabeth Warren has 8 delegates. They're not neck and neck. The only person that can get to the nomination with 1,991 delegates is Bernie Sanders. So what are the rest of them doing right now? What? They're doing Hail Marys. They think that if they block Bernie from getting to 1991, there's going to be a brokered convention. That's very unlikely, even if he gets to 1991. People have signaled in the Democratic Party, DNC members and leadership, that they don't want to have this division because it's just handing the nomination to Trump, the election to Trump. So number one, we have the chances of Bernie getting to 1991 are high, but even if he has the plurality, us going into a brokered convention the chances are very low. Then, on top of that, we have to, on the second ballot, there only has to be one alternative. So there has to be one candidate that collects all of the other earned delegates from all the other campaigns because they're freed on the second ballot. Now, the Bernie delegates, of course, are going to support Bernie. But my guess is that all these other delegates that are at the convention that represent other campaigns, because right now Bernie is second choice to many of these races, that some of them are going to go to Bernie. But for anybody else to have a path, they need to take all of the other pledged delegates and all of the superdelegates. So there's already a very minimal chance we're going to a brokered convention. There's an even more minimal chance that some candidate is going to be able to collect all the other delegates and convince the other campaigns to give them their delegates. And even more minimal chance that they're going to get all the superdelegates. I just don't see this happening, and I say this as a Neera Tanden thing because she has a history of throwing out these divisive talking points to campaigns, and I think that they're being fed to probably their consultants and advisors, and the advisors are convincing the candidates that they have a shot when they don't. Now, the advisors make money off of these races, and the longer these candidates are in the race, and the longer the candidates tell their supporters that they have a path, they can raise money, and these consultants can make money. But one other thing that really stood out to me about Warren was it's not just that she doesn't have a path, and it's not just that she's going after Bernie and the people who helped elect her in the beginning. It's that she's not going after Biden. And she keeps using this term unity candidate. And I'm starting to believe that when she says unity, she doesn't mean unifying the party. I think she means uniting with Joe Biden. So think about that. You know, what other agenda would Elizabeth Warren have at this point? I think that's a plus for Joe Biden. He needs some progressives. He needs whatever base Elizabeth Warren has, although it's slowly diminishing. And he needs to be able to say, look, I can unite the left and the centrists. But the reality is as of right now, Bernie Sanders has a large coalition. I don't know how we're going to go, how we're going to do in South Carolina. But at the end of the day, you look at you look at the lineup of Super Tuesday states, and he's doing very well in all of those states, and he's the second choice for many of the candidates in these states. So moving forward, he is the movement candidate that can defeat Trump. And my message to you would be ignore the New York Times stories. They're just looking for articles. They're looking for drama. Ignore the cable news. They just want drama because it's ratings. And think about how Bernie Sanders has built the only multiracial, multi-generational, working class movement that can defeat Trump. And anybody at this point that is going out there and attacking Bernie and coming up with these crazy schemes is probably in the industry of making money off of these campaigns and keeping the status quo, and possibly even making money off of Joe Biden's race. Off of having Donald Trump in office. So if we want to win, we have to start acting like we're winning. And that means not paying attention to this. This is, I was in an article just quoted, it just came out like an hour ago in NBC by Jonathan Allen. If you have a chance to take a look at it, he quoted in the tweet one line I said, which is, when the establishment is clinging to process, they're losing. So the establishment, and I say this later on in the article, it's at the top of my Twitter if you get a chance to take a look at it. I think this is important, and maybe I was frustrated, but I said to him, if I can find it, they're like openly discussing their plans to rig the election. That shows that they're not in a very strong position, that they're not united. When Nancy Pelosi and she is saying it's okay, if Bernie is the option and we need to defeat Trump because she has to, keep that house together, right? She doesn't want to lose her house. And if someone like Al Sharpton is explaining how there's always been Red Scare tactics against Democrats and civil rights leaders, then it means that our message is working. And that moving forward, we have to think about what it means to keep this party together. And Bernie Sanders is, of course, attracting a new base of voters, and that's good for the party. But if you have people who have divisive messaging out there that only serves the status quo consultant class and the status quo grifters who make money opposing Trump, then that's really bad for democracy. Democracy is the way forward. If your entire strategy is based on rigging an election with a few superdelegates, let me tell you, you're not going to defeat Trump. You're only going to defeat Trump with a multiracial, working class, multi-generational movement across the country. All right, guys, I have to actually tape my show. So if you're not subscribing, please subscribe. If you haven't gotten tickets to our live show in Los Angeles, please go to bit.ly/LA, capital L, capital A, capital S, super, capital T, twos, and you can get the tickets there. It's going to be an amazing show. We've got Michael Brooks, Nando Vila, Lucy Flores, Lona Bunkovsky, Francesca Fiorentini, David Dayan, and LA Charger Justin Jackson all on stage. We're going to be streaming it on multiple platforms. Take that, MSNBC. I think we can get the ratings collectively at their levels midday. All right. Little by little. All right, guys, I got a tape. Thank you so much for joining.